She laughed the first time. Not a big laugh, just that small, breathy kind of laugh someone lets out when they think you're being ridiculous, but they don't want to be cruel. "Your crazy theories again," she said, shaking her head as she rinsed her coffee mug in the sink. The city outside our apartment window was still waking up, gray light, wet streets. Distant traffic humming like a low, constant sigh. I remember the way the steam rose from her cup, how her hair was still messy from sleep, how familiar she looked, and how far away she suddenly felt. "I'm not saying you're cheating," I said. "I was careful, so careful, like I was handling glass. I'm just saying you've been different lately." She turned, leaning on the counter, mug cradled in both hands. "Different how?" Her eyebrows lifted like she was humoring me, like I was a child explaining a dream. I could have listed everything, the late nights that didn't used to exist. The phone turned face down on the table, screen lighting up and going dark without a word. The new perfume I smelled on her when she came home after drinks with coworkers. The way she hugged me with one arm, not two. Instead, I shrugged. "You're just distant." She laughed again, longer this time. She brushed past me, kissed my cheek like it was an obligation. "Baby, you work too much," she said. "You're overthinking. You always do this. You spin these crazy theories in your head until you believe them." Crazy theories, the phrase stuck. She grabbed her coat, tossed a quick "love you" over her shoulder, and the front door closed with its usual soft click. Silence filled the apartment, not peaceful silence, the kind that buzzes under your skin. I stood there in the kitchen, watching that door, feeling something unsteady move in my chest. She'd been my wife for 6 years. We'd built this life together, small apartment, mismatched plates, a couch we argued about but both secretly loved. I knew the sound of her footsteps in the hallway. I knew the pattern of her breathing when she fell asleep on my shoulder. But lately all of that felt like a memory I was trying to hold underwater. It started small. Missed dinners, late replies to texts. "Oh, sorry, phone died." Group photos where she stood a little too close to a guy from work I'd never met. I told myself I was paranoid, that my own insecurities were writing a story around her that wasn't real. Still, I noticed things. 2 wine glasses in the sink when I came home early one night, even though she'd told me she was exhausted and going to bed early. A faint smell of cologne in our living room that wasn't mine. A second toothbrush hidden behind the bathroom mirror, so far back I had to reach for it to knock it down. Crazy theories, the words looped in my head like a taunt. One Friday she texted me, "Team drinks, don't wait up, okay, love you." I stared at my phone for a full minute before answering, "Okay, have fun, love you too." I didn't work late that night. I closed my laptop at 6, the office still buzzing with fluorescent light and quiet conversations, but my mind wasn't in any of it. I drove home through the rain. The city lights blurred on the windshield, red and white smears like someone had dragged a wet brush across the night. Our apartment felt empty. Too empty, like a stage after the actors have left. Her favorite blanket folded neatly on the couch, a half-burned candle on the coffee table, jasmine and vanilla, the faint echo of her laughter in my head when she'd called me dramatic for losing my keys last week. I walked through the rooms like a stranger, opened drawers I never opened, noticed how many spaces her things occupied, and how many spaces felt like they'd been recently cleared. I don't know what I was looking for. Proof, maybe. Or something that would make me feel stupid for doubting her. Instead, I found the box. It wasn't hidden well. Top shelf of the closet, behind a stack of scarves she never wore anymore. Inside, receipts. A movie stub for a film she'd sworn she hadn't got to see yet. A hotel keycard. My hands shook as I flipped through them. Dates circled in red pen, little hearts drawn next to them. There were printed emails too, screenshots maybe, from some account I didn't know she had. No names, just "babe" and "can't wait to see you again," and he has no idea. The words felt like someone pressing a thumb into a bruise I didn't know I had. Crazy theories. The box slipped from my hands and spilled across the floor. For a long time I just stared at the mess, at the fragments of a life I clearly didn't understand. Then my phone buzzed, a photo, her and some coworkers at a bar. Everyone smiling, glasses raised. She'd captioned it, "Told you it's just drinks, face red." The rage didn't come first. What came first was hollow, like someone had opened a window inside my chest and let everything out. I picked up the hotel keycard, turned it over. There was a number on the back, a hotel not far from our place, some business hotel with bland carpets and beige walls. I checked the date on the receipt next to it, last Wednesday. The same night she'd texted me that she was working late and crashed at a friend's place because she was too tired to drive. My vision blurred. For a second, I thought it was because I was dizzy. Then I realized I was crying silently, without even feeling the tears start. I sat down in the middle of the bedroom floor, surrounded by proof. This was the moment, I think. The collapse, not the shouting, not the throwing things. Just the quiet realization that the person I had built my life around had been living a second life right next to me. I could have confronted her right then, called, sent a photo of the box, the receipts, the keycard. Instead, I did something worse. I put everything back in the box, every receipt, every printed message. I closed the lid gently like it was something fragile, and then I did what she said I always did. I started planning. When she came home that night, hours later, the rain had stopped. The city was slick and reflective under the streetlights. She walked in, cheeks flushed from the cold, smelling like wine and perfume. Her smile was easy, practiced. "Hey, you're still up," she said. "Thought you'd pass out without me." I looked at her for a long time, at the woman I loved, at the stranger I'd just discovered. "Yeah," I said softly. "I couldn't sleep." She tossed her bag on the chair, kicked off her heels, and came closer. "You and your insomnia," she teased, brushing my shoulders as she passed behind the couch. Crazy theories, her voice echoed in my memory. I forced a smile. "I guess I've just been thinking too much," I said. She laughed, turning away, heading toward the bedroom. "Don't overthink it," she called. "Nothing's wrong." The bedroom door clicked shut behind her. I sat there in the dim living room, the sound of distant traffic seeping through the window, and realized there was no going back from what I knew. I didn't know yet how far I would go. I didn't know what it would turn me into. All I knew in that quiet, hollow room was this: she thought my theories were crazy, and she had absolutely no idea how right I was. The night after I found the box, I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay there beside her, listening to the soft, even rhythm of her breathing, the way she rolled toward the wall, not toward me, the way her hand stayed neatly on her own side of the bed. Every time I closed my eyes, the hotel keycard flashed behind my eyelids. Morning came in soft gray, rain tapping lightly at the window. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. She'd gotten up before me. Routine, habit. The muscle memory of a marriage continuing to move even after the heart had stopped. I watched her through the doorway for a moment. She moved easily, humming a song under her breath. She poured 2 cups like she always did. "Morning, zombie," she said when she noticed me. "You look like you fought with the night and lost." I managed a chuckle. "Yeah," I said, "rough dreams." She set my cup down in front of me. Her fingers brushed mine. No spark, no warmth. Just contact. If she noticed me studying her face, every line, every flicker of expression, she didn't show it. Maybe that's what hurt most. How normal she could be, knowing what I knew. She left for work at 8, kiss on the cheek. "I'll be late tonight. We've got this big account we're pitching." Another lie that fit so smoothly into the day, it almost sounded like truth. As soon as the door shut, I went to the closet. The box was exactly where I'd left it. This time I didn't just look. I analyzed dates, times, locations. I started building a timeline in my head, watching the past few months rearrange themselves into something much uglier. There was a name on one of the printed emails, only once, like whoever had made the printout got sloppy for a second. "Can't wait to see you again. Same room, M." That was all I had. I checked the hotel's website. Standard business place, nothing special. Online booking, conference rooms, corporate. An idea took shape, slow and heavy, like storm clouds gathering. Revenge stories online always sounded loud, big gestures. Shattered windows, spray-painted cars, public humiliation. But the kind of revenge that interested me now wasn't about volume. It was about precision. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw her clothes out the window or ruin her. I wanted something quieter, something she wouldn't hear coming until it was right in front of her. The first step was simple. I called in sick. Work could wait. I spent the day going through everything she'd left behind, every digital footprint. Her laptop was locked. Her phone was always on her. But her tablet, the one she barely used anymore, was lazily protected with the same old pin she'd had since college. I guessed it on the second try. Inside, there were synced messages from an app with a generic name, not her main one of those secure ones people used when they didn't want things to be easily found. There he was, Marcus, M. His profile picture was some grainy landscape, but the messages were clear enough. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was incredible. Does he suspect anything? Don't worry, he's too busy with work. He lives in his own head." I stared at that last line for a long time. Too busy with work, lives in his own head. They had built this version of me together. Distant, distracted, clueless. It made their affair easier to justify, maybe. They could pretend I was already gone. There were photos, too. Nothing explicit, just enough to make my stomach twist, her wrapped in a hotel sheet, his hand visible at the edge of the frame. I didn't rage, I took screenshots. Transferred them to a folder. I created backups on a drive she didn't know existed. Every message I read didn't just break me, it sharpened me. The more I saw, the less I saw myself as a victim. If she saw me as a crazy theorist, then fine. I'd turn that paranoia into a plan. The turning point came 3 days later. She said she had a late client dinner. Her voice was brazy, casual. She didn't know I could see the reflection of her screen in the kitchen window as she texted him. Same place as last time, room already booked. I stood there holding my mug, staring at the reflected words. "Just don't go full detective on me," she joked as she grabbed her keys. "You know how you get." When the door closed, the apartment seemed to exhale. I went to the bedroom, opened the drawer with my socks, pulled out the small, black recorder I'd used for work interviews a few years back. I checked the battery, still good. I slipped it into my jacket pocket, grabbed the hotel keycard from the box, and left. The rain had started again. Soft, thin, the kind that soaked you slowly, creeping into your clothes until everything felt heavy. The hotel lobby was exactly as bland as it had looked online. Muted carpet, polite receptionist. Soft jazz murmuring from hidden speakers. I walked up with a calm I almost didn't recognize in myself. "Hi," I said. "I think my wife left her scarf here last time we stayed. I can't remember the room number exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was this one." I slid the keycard across the desk, smiling. The receptionist glanced at it, then at the computer. "Oh yes, that room is actually in use again tonight," she said. "Booked by a Marcus L." My heart thudded once hard. "Right," I said. "Could I leave something at the desk for them?" "Surprise, you know." She smiled, conspiratorial, and nodded. "Of course." I thanked her, turned away, and sat down in one of those stiff lobby chairs. I watched the elevator doors, waited. An hour later, I saw her. She stepped through the revolving door, rain clinging to her coat, hair slightly damp, cheeks flushed. She paused, checked her phone, then headed straight for the elevators. She didn't see me. I waited until the doors closed behind her. Then I pressed the call button, different elevator. When I got to their floor, I didn't go to the room. Not yet. I walked past, counting doors, found the one I knew was theirs. Inside, I imagined her laugh, his hands. Our marriage, folded and set aside like her coat on The recorder felt small in my pocket. I slipped it out, pressed record, and knelt down by the door. I didn't need their words, not really. I already had the messages. The hotel receipts, the keycard. This wasn't about proof anymore. This was about understanding. I wanted to hear them talk about me, about what I meant, if I meant anything at all. The sounds that filtered through the door were muffled, movement, low voices, laughter. I caught fragments. "He really doesn't know." "You're sure he won't? You deserve better." Those last 3 words lodged in my throat. She deserved better. The woman who had lied to my face, who had laughed at my crazy theories, deserved better than me. I sat there for 10 minutes, 20, I don't know. At some point I realized my hands were shaking, not from anger, from something quieter, something like grief mixed with clarity. This was the moment I stopped being confused. I stood up, turned off the recorder. I didn't knock. I didn't burst in, I left. On the way home, the rain stopped. The sky remained overcast, heavy, but there was a strange lightness inside me. The confusion was gone. The stories I'd told myself to protect her image, gone. All that was left was a man walking alone through a city that suddenly felt too big. Back at the apartment, I made myself coffee, sat at the kitchen table where we'd had 100 small, ordinary conversations about groceries and Netflix shows. I opened my laptop. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. Quiet, practical questions. Assets, lease, joint accounts. The email read like a business inquiry, but my fingers trembled over every word. Then I opened a new document. This was the part she would never see coming. I started listing everything I knew. Dates, locations, screenshots, the recording, not to throw at her in a screaming match, but to use, to shape what came next. Revenge, at least the kind that made sense to me now, wasn't about hurting her for the sake of pain. It was about reclaiming the story. She had turned me into a punchline, a paranoid husband with crazy theories. Some distant, overworking guy who didn't pay. So I decided to show her just how closely I'd been paying attention. My revenge would be brutal, but not in the way people imagine. No shouting, no broken dishes, just precision. When she finally came home that night, it was almost midnight. She smelled like his cologne and hotel soap, muted under her own perfume. Her lipstick was smudged, eyes a little glassy. "Long night," she said, dropping her bag. Yeah, I replied quietly. Very long. She didn't hear the difference in my voice, or maybe she did, and chose not to notice. Either way, as she walked past me toward the bedroom, I looked at her and realized something. The woman I had loved so fiercely was gone. The one standing in front of me was someone else, someone who thought she knew the script. What she didn't know was that I had already started writing a new one, and in that version, I wasn't the crazy one. It happened faster than I expected. Once the lawyer replied, everything became a sequence of quiet, deliberate moves. New bank account, paycheck redirected, important documents scanned and stored somewhere she couldn't reach. I didn't tip my hand, not yet. At home, I kept playing my role, the slightly tired, slightly distracted husband, the one who believed her late meetings and team drinks. In the spaces where she thought I wasn't looking, she texted him. On the nights she stayed at a friend's, she was with him. I knew because I could see the room charges, because the hotel keycard had been used again. Every lie she told me now was just another entry in my growing archive. The night I finally set everything in motion was a Tuesday. Rain again, the city washed in dull silver, our living room dim except for the glow of the lamp by the couch. She stood by the window, phone in hand, thumb moving quickly. Work crisis, she said when she noticed me watching. We might have to push the campaign again. It's a mess. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Rough day, I asked. She sighed theatrically, rolling her shoulders. You have no idea. She had no idea. The first part of my plan wasn't even about her. It was about him, Marcus, the other man. Using the messages I'd collected, the schedule she'd basically handed me in her texts, and a bit of online digging, I'd found enough to identify him. His job, his LinkedIn. His girlfriend, who appeared in more than a few photos. The woman who had tagged him in date night with my favorite person. She looked happy, innocent in the worst sense of the word. She had no idea either. I wasn't interested in revenge on him the way I was with her. He was part of the story, yes, but he hadn't vowed anything to me. Still, he was going to be part of what broke her illusion. So I made sure his girlfriend got an email, anonymous, cold, with attachments, screenshots of their messages, hotel receipts, a copy of the room audio, those soft laughs, those whispers about me. No explanation, just, you deserve to know. Then I scheduled an email to my wife, set to send at a very specific time, a time I knew she'd be in that same hotel room with him again. In that email, I laid it all out, not emotionally, not accusing. Just factual. Here is the list of dates you cheated on me. Here is the evidence. Here are the messages you and Marcus sent about me. Here is the hotel. At the end, I added, I believed you when you said my theories were crazy. Turns out I wasn't wrong about you. I was wrong about who you were. I attached divorce papers already drafted and ready. All that was missing was her signature. I set the send time, closed the laptop, then I waited. She left the apartment at 7 in her nice coat and favorite heels. Kiss for luck, she asked, leaning down. I let her kiss my cheek. Her lips lingered for a second like they used to. It almost broke me, almost. Don't stay out too late, I said softly. She winked, no promises. The door closed behind her. I sat in the quiet apartment, listening to the faint hum of the fridge, the distant sound of traffic, the soft patter of rain on the window. At 7:40 p.m., my scheduled email went out. Somewhere across the city, her phone buzzed. Somewhere else, so did his girlfriend's. I imagined the scene. The two of them in that beige hotel room, cheap art on the walls, half-finished drinks on the nightstand, her phone lighting up. His buzzing on the table, her opening the email, seeing her own words, her own secrets, laid out in simple, unforgiving lines. I didn't have to see it to know the sequence. The way her face would go from confusion to shock to pale, sick realization. The way she would look at him, suddenly seeing him clearly for the first time. And then, the knock at the doors. His girlfriend standing there with a phone in her hand and tears in her eyes. The two of them caught in a crossfire of truth they hadn't expected. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't cinematic in the loud movie sense. It was quiet brutality. Their secret world collapsing under the weight of their own words. Back at the apartment, I poured myself another coffee. No shaking hands, no adrenaline rush, just an odd, steady calm. My part wasn't finished, though. When she finally slammed through our front door an hour and a half later, she was wet from the rain, mascara smudged, hair messy, her eyes were wild. How long? She demanded, voice cracking. I looked up from the table where I'd been sitting, divorce papers in front of me like an invitation. How long what? I asked quietly. She tossed her phone on the table. The screen lit up with my email open. You knew, she said. You knew, and you set us up. You sent everything to her. There it was, us, not me and him. Us, I nodded, yes. Her breathing was ragged. She looked like someone who'd been running full speed and suddenly hit a wall. How long have you been spying on me? She spat, anger spilling over now that the first wave of panic had passed. I thought of all the nights I'd laid awake beside her, of the way she'd used my patience and trust as. I wasn't spying, I said. I was waking up. She laughed once harsh. You're insane, she said. This is insane. You could have talked to me. You could have asked me. I did, I cut in, my voice still soft. Remember, when I said you were distant. When I asked what was going on. She froze, I continued. You laughed, I reminded her. You said I had crazy theories. Her shoulders slumped just a little. The fight in her eyes flickered. This is cruel, she whispered. Sending everything to her, to him. You wanted to humiliate me. I shook my head. No, I said. I wanted you to see yourself, without the lies, without the little stories you told to make it feel better. She looked away, jaw tight. You don't understand, she murmured. Then help me, I said. Help me understand. When did I stop being enough? Silence settled between us. The rain outside had turned into a steady curtain, the sound soft but constant. She sank into the chair across from me, hands trembling. It wasn't about you not being enough, she said slowly. That's the worst part. You were good, you were kind, you were stable. Stable, I repeated. She winced. I felt invisible, she admitted. You were always working, always in your head. We stopped seeing each other. And then Marcus, he made me feel noticed again, wanted, alive. The words stung. Not because they were entirely untrue, but because she had used them as justification to burn everything down quietly behind my back. So your solution, I said, keeping my voice level, was to split yourself in half instead of talking to me. Tears filled her eyes. I know, she whispered. I know it was wrong. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd end it, that you'd never have to know, that I was protecting you from the truth. I let out a bitter laugh. You weren't protecting me, I said. You were protecting the version of yourself you wanted to believe in. She swallowed hard, silence again. The room felt smaller. You destroyed my life tonight, she said suddenly, anger flaring back up. You humiliated me. You humiliated him. Something inside me went very still. No, I said quietly. You destroyed your life. I just made sure you didn't get to pretend otherwise. She flinched. Her gaze dropped to the papers on the table. What's that? She asked, though I could tell she already knew. Divorce, I said. Already filed. I wanted you to see everything before you signed. Her face crumpled. So that's it, she whispered. 6 years. Just like that. I thought of the hotel rooms, the lies, the way she'd brushed off my worries like a joke. It wasn't just like that when you decided to sleep with him, I said softly. You've been ending this for months. I'm just catching up. She reached out, fingers brushing the edge of the papers. Is there really no way back? She asked, voice so small I barely recognized it. She was crying now, real tears, no performance, no audience but me. The part of me that had loved her for so long stirred, remembered late-night talks, shared laughter, stupid arguments over takeout. But the person in front of me wasn't the woman I'd built my memories with, not anymore. I don't know how to love someone I can't trust, I said. She let out a quiet sob, covering her mouth with her hand. We sat like that for a while, just two people in a small, dimly lit apartment, rain drumming on the window. A life unraveling between us on a thin stack of paper. Finally she stood. I can't sign this tonight, she whispered. I need to think. I nodded. I'm not rushing you, I said. I've been living with this longer than you have. Take your time. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she'd never really known the version of me that could be this calm while everything burned. She picked up her bag with shaking hands. I'll go to my sister's, she said. Just for a few days. I'll call you. I didn't stop her, didn't ask her to stay. The door closed behind her. The apartment seemed bigger suddenly, every room echoing. I walked to the window. The city glowed under the rain, blurred and distant. Behind me, the divorce papers sat untouched, her signature line still empty. For the first time since everything started, I was alone, truly alone. And yet beneath the ache, beneath the hollow stretch of silence, there was something else, a strange, tentative sense of relief. She was gone. The lies were out. The story was finally honest. But honest didn't mean finished. Because a week later, she came back. She knocked early, too early for visitors, too late to feel like an accident. Morning light spilled through the thin curtains, soft and pale. No rain for once. Just a quiet, washed-out sky hanging over the city. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door. Part of me hoped it was anyone else. A neighbor, a delivery, a mistake. But when I opened the door, there she was, my wife. Or the woman who used to be my wife, standing on the threshold with a small duffel bag and eyes that looked like they hadn't seen sleep in days. Hi, she said. Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying for hours and then suddenly stopped. Hi, I replied. We stood there facing each other in the quiet hallway, our old life hovering in the space between us. Can I come in? She asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked into the apartment like it might shatter under her feet. She glanced around, noticing what had changed. Her framed photos taken down, the empty spot where her favorite plant used to sit. The blanket she loved folded and tucked away in a drawer. Looks different, she said quietly. Yeah, I answered. I've been clearing space. She flinched at that just slightly. We ended up at the kitchen table again, same chairs. Same faint scratch on the wood where we'd accidentally dragged a box across it when we moved in. She sat, clutched her hands together. I signed the papers, she said, sliding an envelope across the table. There it was. Her name scrawled at the bottom of a life. I didn't touch it yet. Okay, I said softly. Silence, the hum of the fridge, a car passing outside, two people once everything to each other, now reduced to paperwork and unfinished sentences. I wanted to talk before you filed them completely, she said. I already filed them, I answered gently. The process started days ago. That's why the signature was the last step. She nodded like she'd expected that. Still, her shoulders sagged. I figured, she murmured. I needed to see you. One more time, without the chaos, without him, without anyone else. There was something in her voice that made it hard to breathe. Not manipulation, not drama, just regret. What happened after that night? I asked. I didn't need every detail. I just needed to understand the shape of the aftermath. She let out a long breath. His girlfriend left, she said, took her stuff, blocked his number. She sent me a message, thanking me in some twisted way for exposing him, and hating me at the same time. She laughed, bitter and small. I guess you managed to destroy 2 relationships in one night, she added. I looked at her. No, I said, you both destroyed them. I just cut the lights on. She swallowed, nodding. You're right, she said. I keep trying to blame you for how much it hurts. It's easier than sitting with the fact that I did this to myself. Her eyes filled, but she blinked hard, holding it back. For what it's worth, she went on, voice barely above a whisper, he wasn't worth what I gave up, not even close. That didn't make me feel better, it just made the whole thing. We sat in that quiet sadness for a while. I wake up now, she said, staring at the table, and the first few seconds are normal. I think about coffee or my commute or what I'm going to wear, and then it hits me, that I blew up my own life, that you're not next to me. That I did that. Her voice cracked on the last word. I can't escape it, she whispered. It's like rain in my head, constant, cold. There was a time when that image would have broken me. Now it just settled over the moment, like a layer of fog. I know you probably don't care, she said, but I'm not seeing him anymore. I blocked him, changed my number, quit my job. That surprised me. You quit, I asked. She nodded. I couldn't walk past those conference rooms and not see everything, she said. I couldn't be the woman who did what I did and still pretend to be normal at my desk. I leaned back in my chair. Why are you telling me this? I asked gently. She met my eyes. Because I need you to know I'm not running from what I did, she said. I'm sitting in it every day, and I'm going to carry it with me for the rest of my life. She hesitated. And because there's one more thing I need to say to you, even if it doesn't change anything. The apartment felt very small in that moment. Okay, I said, I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not the kind of sorry where I'm trying to get something back. Not the kind where I say it and then ask you to forget. I'm sorry in the way that, if I could step outside my own body and shake the version of me that started this, I would. She looked away, jaw trembling. When you told me you felt distance, she continued, that night in the kitchen I heard you, and I laughed anyway. I made fun of you in my head. I told myself you were paranoid so I wouldn't have to face what I was doing. She wiped her eyes. You didn't deserve that, she said. You didn't deserve any of it. Something loosened in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. This was the bare, unarmored truth I'd been waiting for. I wish you'd come to me before you went to him, I said. We could have tried to fix it, or ended things honestly. We could have spared each other this version of us. She nodded, biting her lip. I know, she whispered. That's the part that keeps me up at night, not that I lost you, but that I lost the version of myself that could look you in the eye and say, I never betrayed you. We both went quiet again. Morning light softened the edges of the room. The city noise outside slowly increased as people went about their normal lives. After a long while, I spoke. I need you to understand something, I said. My revenge wasn't about punishing you for leaving me. It was about making sure you didn't get to walk away from this thinking you were the victim. She nodded slowly. I know that now, she said. And as much as it hurts, I get it. You gave me the exact clarity I denied you. My throat felt tight. I won't pretend I'm proud of it, I admitted, but I won't apologize for it either. I'm not asking you to, she said. We sat there, two people who had torn each other open, and something shifted. The anger that had once roared in me felt distant. The sharp edges dulled. What remained was a kind of tired human ache. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly. The question hung there. I thought about it. I did, I said. For a while, in a loud, ugly way. I wanted you to hurt the way I did. And now, she whispered. Now, I paused, searching for the right words. Now I don't have the energy to hate you. I'm sad for us, for what we could have been if we'd both been braver. But hate, no, I don't want to carry you around in my chest like that. Her shoulders shook once, a small sob escaping. That's kinder than I deserve, she murmured. Maybe, I said, but I need to be kind to myself too. Holding on to hate would mean I'm still living in that hotel room with you. I'm done living there. She smiled through her tears. A twisted, broken sort of smile. You're going to be okay, she said. I can see it, even if you don't yet. I looked around the apartment, at the empty spaces, at the light coming in. I think I will be, I admitted. She stood slowly. I should go, she said. I don't want to drag this out. I just needed you to know I'm sorry, really sorry, and that I will carry you with me, not as the man I cheated on, but as the man I was too cowardly to be honest with. I swallowed. Thank you for saying that, I replied. She picked up her duffel. At the door she paused. If you ever meet someone else, she said, voice trembling, please don't let what I did make you hold back. Whoever she is, she won't be me. Don't punish her for my choices. The thought of someone else felt distant, abstract, like a story I hadn't started yet. I'll try, I said. She nodded, then very softly. Goodbye. I didn't say see you. I didn't say take care. I simply said goodbye. She stepped into the hallway. The door closed with a quiet click, and just like that, she was gone. For a long time, I didn't move. The apartment was filled with a strange kind of silence, not the hollow, echoing silence of betrayal, something gentler. I made coffee. The familiar smell rose in the... I sat at the table, the signed papers in front of me, and finally picked them up. The ink of her name had smudged slightly in one corner, like her hand had shaken as she wrote it. I traced the edge of the page with my thumb. This was the legal ending, but the real ending had happened in 100 small moments before this. The empty chairs at our dinners, the late replies, the way she'd laughed at my theories instead of listening to the fear behind them. I thought about revenge, about the hotel, the emails, the way I'd orchestrated it, all so she'd have to look at herself honestly. There was a time when that had felt like power. Now it just felt like a chapter. Necessary maybe, but not the last one. Outside, the morning brightened. Light slid across the table, warming the wood. Dust motes drifted lazily in the air. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where her name wasn't the first thing that came to mind when I thought about love. Not today. Not tomorrow, but someday. I didn't forgive her in that moment. Forgiveness, real forgiveness, is quieter than that, slower, but I did release something, the need for her to understand the depth of my pain. The need to replay every moment looking for signs, the need to rewrite the past. The past was fixed. What wasn't fixed yet was me. I took a deep breath. The air felt a little less heavy. I stood, walked to the window, and opened it. Cool morning air slipped in, carrying the distant sounds of the city, cars, voices, a dog barking somewhere below. Life continuing. I rested my hands on the windowsill and closed my eyes. For the first time since this whole thing began, there was a small, quiet space inside me that wasn't filled with her. It wasn't filled with anyone, just silence. And in that silence, a simple thought. She laughed at my crazy theories. But in the end, I wasn't crazy. I was just awake too late, in a life that had already ended. Now, in this soft, gray morning, with the window open and the papers signed, I realized something else. I wasn't just the betrayed husband. I wasn't just the man who orchestrated a brutal revenge. I was also the man who would eventually learn to set the weight down. Not today, not all at once, but slowly, the way rain stops, the way light returns. One quiet, honest morning at a time. Light returns. One quiet, honest morning at a time.